Welcome back to Abu Dhabi. Qualifying is complete. McLaren 1-2 on the grid. Lando Norris on pole position. But John, the job isn't done yet. There's still quite a lot of danger that they've got to get through in the race tomorrow.
I think so. I think this is absolutely fascinating. It's one of those great psychological points, I think. And I think a really defining day tomorrow for McLaren. If they win the Constructors tomorrow, first time since 1998, massive achievement. They're far ahead of the trajectory they were on before. Would be brilliant, and bounce them into a challenge for both championships 25. If they lose it after the season they've had, when they've potentially been the quickest car in the second half of the year, and you think of all those little opportunities, I think it'd be quite hard for them to kind of pick themselves up and kind of deal with that challenge. We'll only find out what that kind of resolution is tomorrow. But yeah, it's not easy for them. They've got the quickest car here. They've locked out the front row of the grid. They've got Charles Leclerc right at the back for Ferrari. Everything's in their hands, but I think it's actually potentially more difficult to manage because we know Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri are two drivers wired to win. They both want to win that race tomorrow. They both want to end this season on a high. Neither will want to take too much risk, but we'll also know the other guy's not going to take too much risk. So I think actually Andrea Stella tomorrow morning is going to have quite a hard task speaking to them to say, look boys, we know what the priority is tomorrow. It's winning the Constructors Championship. Don't mess it up.
And there's a third element of risk, which is that Carlos Sainz, starting in third place, has nothing to lose. He's going to Williams. He's basically said it in the press conference, this is potentially my last chance ever to win a Formula One race, at least for the foreseeable future. And he's got to give it all for Ferrari, because as you said, John, Charles Leclerc starting at the back, he looked like he got through Q2, was the fastest runner. Lost his time for going too wide at turn one. Just so tricky there at that corner because there was so much time to be gained by getting through that little bit faster. But yeah, obviously he already had the penalty for his battery basically dying, as Carlos Sainz put it in the press conference, saying that was just a huge blow, huge shock for the team. So sounds like Ferrari been on edge ever since early on in the weekend. So yeah, that's dangerous to McLaren because Sainz can just go, right, I'm going to send it. If he gets the slightest opportunity, he might take it.
Yeah, but there's also another aspect. I think you spoke to Andrea Stella tonight, and
yes,
he was happily kind of left a bit worried about their perfect stat, isn't it?
Yes, I've absolutely cursed him. McLaren is basically the only one of the top four teams not to have had some sort of massive or significant reliability drama this season. If you look at their results so far, the only time either one of Piastri or Norris has finished outside of the points is because of incidents that have happened during races. So Piastri getting involved actually with Sainz in Miami and unfortunate things with the safety car there, and of course very famously Lando Norris with Max Verstappen in Austria. Of the other teams, Mercedes, Lucy George Russell in Silverstone, Lewis Hamilton in Australia, Red Bull, the issues they've had mainly in practice, it hasn't manifested itself in the race other than in Australia with that brake problem on Verstappen's car, but it has obviously given them grid penalties. And then Ferrari, Charles Leclerc in Canada, but very significantly here. So yeah, Andrea Stella go, yeah, thanks for that question, perfect timing. But he was also asked about the 2010 race here, and obviously famously when he was Fernando Alonso's race engineer, they lost this title having come in as the favourite effectively at this very track because it's very difficult to overtake. The sort of flip side to that is, first of all, he was, I thought he was quite a nice point where he said that he's chatted with Fernando over the years, and actually they look back on it now and they're proud of that. Maybe he's proud of that. I reckon Fernando Alonso's still pretty furious that he didn't get that world title. But the point there is obviously it was the layout that really screwed Fernando Alonso that year. Different this time around, but as Andrea Stella said, there are not really any slow cars here. So it's going to be even harder for Charles Leclerc to overtake that way. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think? How high do you think Leclerc might be able to rise?
I think he'll probably get towards the bottom end of the points. But I think Andrea Stella is right. The field this year is fantastically close. We've had 4 teams able to win races. All their drivers have been able to win races. Not all of them have won races, but they've been able to win races. It's tough now to get in the points. You've also got a very quick Haas here. Nico Hulkenberg, sensational today in all aspects apart from leaving the pit lane, picking up the 3-race grid penalty for overtaking coming out. So I think it's tough on Charles. I think Ferrari's best hope is Carlos goes on the attack and McLaren stumble. And I think as Andrea Stella quite rightly pointed out, things can change on the toss of a coin here. Last weekend in Qatar, Lando Norris looked to have that race under control, challenging Max Verstappen. The pace was there. They know the car comes alive in those closing stages of the race. Didn't slow for the yellow flag. gets a stop-go penalty, drops the back of the field, and you lose potentially the points that could decide the championship. Who knows? They'll be nervous tomorrow, McLaren, but I think, as Andrea Stella says, the fact that he was here in 2010 and had the pain of that day means, and if that was been a Formula 1 for a decade, it means he's been here for 25 years, learning the ropes, getting the experience, knowing the highs, knowing the lows, knowing how to deal with the challenges, knowing how to take the opportunities. And I think he'll maybe won't sleep perfect tonight, but I think there'll be a level of calmness.
I think if he's going to lose any sleep, it will be from excitement, I think. Because we were both up there at the McLaren hospitality unit, and he's saying, from his point of view, he's been saying to the team, "Are you okay?" And they're like, "Yeah, of course. We've done 23 races already. It's just the next one." He's, in his words, they're pretty chilled. So I think it'll be we might finally be achieving our dream that will keep them up. Let's talk a little bit of strategy. We're both down at Pirelli chatting to Mario Isola. One stopper is the fastest, but it's not looking most likely because potentially two stopper only slightly less fast. So how might they do that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be similar to last year, where on paper the one stop is quicker, but actually kind of the complications with traffic, managing tyres, actually medium hard. Everyone's saved 2 hards for tomorrow. I think it's just one of those kind of standard Abu Dhabi races where it's not necessarily about degradation and holding on and tons of undercuts and all that sort of chaos. I think it'll be a standard race, but I think it's going to be fascinating to watch.
Completely, and of course the Constructors Championship, not the only story in town. There's storylines everywhere you look at this event, but sort of a negative one in terms of Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes. Obviously the big negativity for Mercedes, the fact that the 7-time world champion is leaving. Out in Q1 today, John, what happened, and what was the particularly interesting word that Toto Wolff used to describe what happened?
Oh, I can't even remember it because it was so
dilettantic. That was the one.
So it's been a difficult season for Lewis. I think he admits he's not handled some of the emotions very well. It's been mentally challenging for him being in this environment. A car he doesn't particularly get on well with, and a team he's leaving the end of the season. Just endless kind of complications to plough through. He's had great days, Las Vegas Sunday. He's had terrible days, Qatar. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Last weekend was terrible. I think he went into qualifying today thinking, actually, this is quite good. P3, pace looked good. I think he felt they were the second best team behind McLaren, so potentially fighting for the podium. And Toto also they made an inexcusable mistake, which is basically waiting until the end of Q1 until the track conditions had potentially ramped up to go for a better time. Ended up getting tripped up in traffic, almost manoeuvred his way through it, but Kevin Magnussen, who was ahead of him, trying to get out of the way, pitched the bollard onto the track. Lewis hit the bollard, trapped under the car, and while that lost him, the bollard potentially was the difference between getting through and not getting through. He shouldn't have been anywhere near the traffic. They should have just gone out. Q1, you only need to set a top 15 time. You don't need to be at the top. So I think it's just another day of a season where things haven't gone the right way for Lewis. And I think he'll be really, really disappointed because I think just that glimmer of hope there was this morning that things were going to be better, it's all evaporated again.
Well, one last storyline I think worth touching on. You mentioned it briefly. Nico Hulkenberg, absolute star of qualifying yet again for Haas, and potentially the best one since. I think he did lose. He lost potentially a front row start in Canada last year to a red flag issue, and it looks like he's fallen afoul again of race director's instructions. This time it comes down to overtaking in the pit lane exit specifically because it's got that famous tunnel here. So yeah, what's happened there, John?
So Haas have been in a really difficult position this year because there's these new kind of pit lanes rules where in terms of how you can push yourself into the queue, and we know with this safety car the maximum time, delta time, you can't build up gaps on track, you need to build up the gap in the pit lane. So all that happens is Haas inevitably get a bit screwed over really because all the cars come down the pit lane, Nico gets shunted to the back and can't push his nose out to push in front, he gets a penalty. So he got a bit stitched up trying to get out, needed to set a lap time, realised time was running out. So if he stayed behind the cars in front, he's not going to set a lap time, he's going to be out. So he had to go for it. Overtook in the pit lane exit, which finally got through, no problem. But race director's notes, event notes, head of the weekend said no overtaking in the pit exit, it's forbidden. So while the stewards accepted there was a reason he did it, it was against the event notes, it's a breach of the regulations, and I think he'll be gutted to get that penalty, but that car's quick, and I think their fight for 6th place in the Constructors, it's game on.
Absolutely, and ultimately a net gain because he managed to get through Q3 and only got a 3-place grid penalty. Well, that's it for Saturday here at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. We'll be back tomorrow. I suspect if McLaren don't win the Constructors Championship, someone from McLaren, maybe Andrea Stella himself, will have put me into that harbour. But fingers crossed for my fabric that I own and what I wear, that doesn't happen. Anyway, we'll see you back tomorrow for the result of the 2024 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.